Port Helix never really sleeps. It hums. Not the hum of traffic or voices, but the low, constant thrum of power lines threaded through every tower, every sky bridge, every neon sign bleeding into the water below. From the upper deck of the Sky Marina, I could see the energy spire stabbing into the night sky. Its core pulsed a cold, electric blue, bright enough to turn the black waves silver. In this city, energy isn't just what keeps the lights on, it's currency. The more you control, the more you matter. And my family, they controlled enough to matter more than almost anyone. At least, that's what they like to believe. My father, Victor Vance, ran the Vance Energy Conglomerate, a dynasty that didn't just sell power. It decided who could live comfortably and who would freeze in the dark. My stepmother, Selene, played the part of a philanthropist in public and a chess master in private. Caleb, my half-brother, was the golden boy, already being groomed as heir. Me, I was the silent daughter, the one they kept at the edge of the family portrait, the one who, after my mother died, became an afterthought, tolerated, but never trusted with anything that mattered. You don't survive in Port Helix by shouting for attention. You survive by knowing exactly when to move and when to wait. Tonight was Victor's 50th birthday, a glass and steel spectacle floating above the harbor. From my seat, I watched guests glide between crystal flutes and holographic deals, their conversations half laughter, half negotiation. Outside, warm ocean wind curled around the deck. Inside, music rose in slow, easy waves, and then my father's voice sliced through it. Cold, measured, meant to draw blood. "You're a burden, Aurelia." It wasn't the first time he'd said it, but it was the first time he'd said it here in front of 200 guests, under lights bright enough for every twitch of my face to be seen. The laughter died mid-breath. Selene's painted lips curved in satisfaction. Caleb checked his holo watch, pretending he hadn't heard. Somewhere deep inside, a memory stirred my mother's voice, low but sharp. Not every war is won on the battlefield. Some are won at the dinner table by the one who refuses to take the bait. So I smiled, because they had no idea what I'd been planning. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The soft clink of glass stems and the distant hum of the engines seemed to grow louder, filling the silence my father had left hanging in the air. Selene didn't need to say a word. Her smile said it for her. It was the smile of someone who'd waited years for this moment, who'd orchestrated it like a scene in a play, knowing exactly when to drop the line that would cut the deepest. Across the table, Caleb's gaze never left his holo watch, his thumb flicking through invisible data streams. He wasn't checking the time, he was distancing himself, making sure he wasn't caught in the blast radius. I could feel the weight of every guest's eyes on me, their curiosity barely hidden behind champagne flutes. In Port Helix, weakness is as good as an invitation to be erased. If I broke now, if I let them see the hurt, the story would be over before it even began. So I didn't flinch. I set my fork down. Slowly, deliberately. The silver prongs kissed the edge of the plate with a sound sharper than it had any right to be. Then I stood. No apology, no defense, just the quiet scrape of my chair against the glass floor, a sound that somehow felt louder than the music restarting behind me. I didn't look at Selene's smirk or Caleb's feigned distraction, but I did see Cale seated 3 places down, his eyes locked on mine. There was no surprise in them, only a steady, unreadable focus like he already knew what I was about to do. And he was right. The warm ocean air wrapped around me as I stepped away from the table, past guests who parted like water, their polite smiles hiding an eagerness for gossip. The Sky Marina's corridor was a tunnel of glass lit from within, the sea stretching out into endless black on either side. With every step, the noise of the party faded, replaced by the low hum of the ship's engines. The further I walked, the clearer my mind became, sharper, colder. By the time I reached my private cabin, I already knew this wasn't going to be another night of swallowing their insults. Tonight, they had drawn first blood, and I was done letting them believe I wouldn't strike back. The door to my private cabin slid shut behind me with a soft hiss, sealing out the music, the murmurs, and the stench of expensive champagne. Inside, the lights rose slowly, revealing the black steel vault in the far corner, a stark contrast to the sleek, glass and chrome decor of the Sky Marina. That vault wasn't for jewelry or heirlooms. It was for the one thing in Port Helix more valuable than gold, stock, or even land. My personal energy key. To most people, it would look like nothing. A slim, matte black device, no logos, no ornamentation. But in the right port, it could grant or revoke access to entire energy grids. In a city where power is life, it was the closest thing to a god switch. And unlike everything else the Vance family thought they owned, this was mine. Legally, permanently, untouchably mine. The biometric scanner pulsed under my palm, cool and unforgiving before flashing green. The vault door whispered open, and there it was, cradled in a foam lining like the weapon it truly was. I slid the key into the wrist port embedded in my left arm. The interface flared to life across my vision, glowing threads of code that were, in truth, the veins of my family's empire. One tap, one voice command, and I could sever them from the lifeblood of Port Helix. I opened a secure channel. Mira! Her voice came through instantly, calm but alert. I'm here. I want you to revoke the Vance family's grid access. I said, my tone flat, almost surgical. Permanent, no overrides. A brief pause, not hesitation, but respect. Understood. Lines of code began collapsing in my visual display like dominoes falling in reverse. Entire network branches went dark, their identifiers blinking out one by one. In my cabin's low light, the console confirmed it in stark red text. Family grid access revoked. The silence that followed wasn't the absence of sound. It was the absence of weight, the kind of silence you only feel when a chain is cut from your neck. I removed the key, slid it back into its case, and locked the vault. By the time I stepped back into the corridor, the party was still in full swing. Somewhere up on that deck, Victor was probably toasting to himself, still believing he held every switch, every breaker, every connection. But tonight, the real gift had just been mine to give and take away. The Sky Marina's docking rail slid away beneath my energy sedan with a low magnetic hum. Outside, the coastal skyway stretched ahead, a silver ribbon suspended over black water, its edges lit by faint navigation beacons. For a few minutes, it was just the soft vibration of the engine and the muted whisper of the tide far below. I let the quiet settle, watching the city lights fade into the distance. Then my dashboard pulsed red. Alert, vehicle following hover SUV, black 30 meters. I didn't need to look to know who it was, but I looked anyway. Through the rear display, the shape of the SUV was a dark shadow gliding in perfect sync with my speed. Its tinted windows swallowed the passing light, but every so often, the glow from the Skyway's beacons caught the sharp cut of a jawline in the back seat. Victor. Jaw clenched, lips moving fast, no doubt barking orders. Beside him, Selene lounged in her seat as if this was nothing more than a scenic midnight drive. The silver flask in her hand caught the dash lights, glinting each time she tipped it to her lips. And in the passenger seat sat Brant Cole, the energy credit syndicate's favorite blunt instrument. He tapped a long, thin data spike against his knee like a predator cleaning its teeth before a kill. My comm channel clicked open with a burst of static. Kale's voice, low and tight. They've been on you since the dock. Say the word, I'll block them. I kept my eyes on the horizon, steady. No, let them follow. Let them think I'm running. A pause heavy. I could almost hear the way Kale's teeth ground together. Understood. The SUV kept its distance, never more than 30 meters, never less than 25. It was the kind of tale you gave someone when you wanted them to know you were there, close enough to scare, far enough to make them wonder when you'd strike. But what they didn't realize was that the game had already flipped. They thought they were hunting me. In truth, I was leading them exactly where I wanted them to go. I eased the sedan off the main skyway onto the West Causeway, the one that cut straight through the industrial zone. The skyline changed from glittering glass towers to black steel silhouettes and the steady hum of massive energy conduits. At the end of that road was a fortress, not of concrete and stone, but of data and law. The Federal Data Security Center. The West Causeway narrowed until it felt less like a road and more like a steel artery feeding into the beating heart of the city's data lifeblood. Ahead, the Federal Data Security Center rose from the water like a black monolith. No windows, no ornamentation, just sheer obsidian panels laced with faint blue circuitry that pulsed in slow, deliberate waves. The SUV stayed back, idling 100 meters away. They wouldn't dare follow me inside, not here. This was the one place in Port Helix where even the most powerful names bowed to the law. The gate recognized my sedan's signature instantly. Access granted private clearance. 2 armed guards in graphite armor stood at either side of the entrance, eyes hidden behind mirrored visors. As my vehicle glided in, they scanned my ID and gave a subtle nod. Inside, the air was cooler, cleaner, and humming with the sound of 100 encrypted servers breathing in sync. Holographic grids floated overhead, each one alive with shifting code streams from across Port Helix. The smell of ozone and polished steel hung heavy, like the promise of something untouchable. Mira's voice came through the comm, sharper than before. They've moved fast. 2 high-credit energy loans filed in your name, both routed through the Vance home network. I stopped in front of a console, the glass surface waking up under my palm. They're cloning my ID. Exactly. And they're using your old access signature, the one tied to pre-inheritance accounts. That's why Brant's with them. He's the one running the spike. I slid my energy key into the console's port. My identity sphere flared in my vision, pulsing with a warm golden hue as the biometric lock confirmed my match. Then I hit freeze. Every account, every credit line linked to my signature went cold in seconds. On screen, payment requests hung frozen mid-transfer. Loan approvals died in place, their progress bars stuck forever at 92%. But that wasn't enough. I rerouted all incoming comms and legal notices to a dead drop P. Oh, box that only I controlled. Then I layered a new lock, triple-tier biometric with a rolling encryption key so volatile that even Mira couldn't bypass it without my direct feed. The Vance family might still be sitting in that black SUV, thinking they were closing in. In reality, I had just slammed every door in their faces. When they tried the handle again, I'd be waiting on the other side. The micro-energy station I'd rented sat at the far edge of the industrial zone, a squat steel structure wrapped in cooling conduits and reinforced doors. No neighbors, no unmonitored cameras, just enough space and silence to turn it into exactly what I needed, a trap. Ronan Hale was already there when I arrived. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a slate-gray coat that probably cost more than my sedan. He radiated the kind of calm you only see in lawyers who have gutted corporations from the inside out. "They'll make a move soon," he said without preamble, scanning the room with sharp, deliberate eyes. "And when they do, you don't stop them. You let the system hear everything." I understood exactly what he meant. No shouting matches, no threats of my own. Just silence, the kind that lets every word from their mouths become a nail in their own coffin. 10 minutes later, Cale arrived, toolbox in hand. He didn't waste time talking, just moved through the space with quiet precision. 2 360 degrees micro cameras in each corner. voice print sensors hidden inside the walls, a redundant power core buried under the floor, making sure nothing could be shut down remotely. When he was done, Cale placed a small, silver device on the steel table between us. "Emergency transmitter," he said. "One push, and every feed here goes straight to Mira's encrypted cloud. Even if they fry the grid, you'll still have the footage." I picked it up, feeling its weight. Not heavy, but solid, like a promise I fully intended to keep. "This time," I said, sliding it into my jacket pocket, "they're not just going to lose access. They're going to lose the right to ever touch me again." Cale's gaze lingered for a moment, not pity, not worry, just that unspoken understanding that I was past the point of retreat. Ronan tapped his data slate. "Once they are on the property, everything is fair game. The minute Brant plugs in that spike, he'll be committing a class intrusion. Victor and Selene will be accessories. The Energy Enforcement Unit won't just find them, they'll put it on the public record." "Good," I said. "I want them to watch their reputation burn in daylight." The trap was ready. Now all I had to do was wait for them to walk in. The night outside felt heavy, like the air before a lightning strike. I sat at the station's central desk, a mug of untouched coffee cooling beside me, eyes flicking between camera feeds. Each screen showed a different slice of the perimeter, empty, silent, waiting. Then the alert chimed. "Incoming vehicle, hover SUV black." Through the high window, I saw it glide to a stop. Doors opened in quick succession. First, Victor, moving like a man who believed doors opened for him, even when they were locked. Selene followed, heels clicking, her coat swinging open to reveal that same silver flask in her hand. And Brant, broad, unhurried, carrying his data spike like it was an extension of his arm. The first hit came a second later. Bang, the steel door rattled under Victor's fist. "Aurelia," his voice was sharp, ragged at the edges. "Open this damn door." Selene stepped forward, her tones smooth but laced with venom. "You think this little stunt scares us? We can fix everything if you stop playing the victim." I stayed silent. On the monitors, Cale's cameras caught every detail, Victor pacing like a caged predator, Selene leaning close to whisper something I could almost hear, Brant crouching by the lock. Then it happened. Brant plugged the spike into the panel. The station's security system screamed an alert. "Unauthorized access attempt, ID logged, location recorded." I tapped the emergency transmitter in my pocket. Mira's voice came through instantly, crisp and calm. "Got the feed. Energy Enforcement is en route. Keep them talking." Victor's voice cracked with fury. "You've ruined this family. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because he still didn't realize the line he just crossed. Every threat, every illegal action, every ounce of entitlement, all of it was now sealed inside the federal evidence vault. Blue strobes lit up the windows before my coffee even cooled. The Energy Enforcement Unit moved fast, armored officers swarming the entrance, their voices amplified and precise. Brant was the first to go down, wrists bound in magnetic cuffs, spike confiscated. Victor was handed a cyber intrusion citation on the spot, his face darkening as the officer read the charge aloud. And Selene, for the first time I could remember, looked rattled, her composure fracturing under the bright, unflinching light. I didn't go to the door. I didn't need to. The system had just spoken for me. The last echo of the SUV's engines faded into the night, leaving only the low hum of the station's power core. On my console, the words glowed like a final verdict. Status fully independent. No shared accounts. No joint grids. No invisible strings coiled around my every move. For the first time in years, the air didn't feel borrowed. It was mine, unfiltered, unowned, untouched. The door to the control room opened softly. Cale stepped in, jacket slung over one shoulder, a faint, knowing smile on his lips. "You fought an entire war tonight without firing a single shot," he said. Not many people could do that. I shrugged, though the corner of my mouth betrayed me. Sometimes the cleanest win is the one they never see coming. He came closer, and that's when I noticed the small box in his hand brushed blue titanium, its edges glowing faintly. He flipped it open. Inside, a ring the same luminous blue as the energy spire outside, set in a band etched with a pattern only visible under light. "Now that you're free," Kale said quietly, "will you build a life with me?" I laughed, a soft sound in the dim light. "I just revoked my family's access, but you," I held out my hand, "you can have permanent access." The ring slid onto my finger, warm against my skin. Somewhere in the background, Mira's voice chimed through the calm. "System status, happily ever after on." For a long moment, there was only silence, not the absence of sound, but the presence of peace. And then my private comm pinged, breaking it. One new message. No sender ID, just a subject line. "We know what you did to the Vance grid." I stared at it, feeling that familiar prickle of static at the back of my neck. Maybe tonight's war was over. But Port Helix never really sleeps.